So hello everyone. Today we are discussing after a break of I think maybe 1.5 year. I am again discussing that Scrum Master interview series. Yeah, this is something which we used to do a lot, but looks like in between people were not going for that many interviews. But probably we start again. And fortunately, we have one of the participant, and she is willing to share her ideas. And it's more like a conversation rather than I provide definitive answer, as you all know. So we'll talk and explore it together. Maybe you wanna give a little briefing and then we get to the action.
Sure, Saket. So thanks a lot for providing this opportunity for discussion. And overally, if I would like to briefly introduce myself, I have 13.8 years of IT experience, out of which 6 years I'm into Agile project management way of working. So recently, I played a role of Scrum Master along with that program manager. So sometimes being a project manager, so the role I have all the diversified ways of I like all the mixed flavor based on the need of the client when and however it is required.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so today I'd like to discuss a couple of interview questions I recently faced on.
Okay, go ahead.
So
Let's discuss. Yeah.
the interviewer was asking, did you face any stakeholder conflict? And what kind of conflict did you face? So I narrated a scenario to them that, yeah, there were two stakeholders. They both belongs to different departments. They had a conflict that their changes, they want to migrate on the prod to the on the same implementation week, but while raising the request, and one was got approved and other was what not approved based on the priority. So then the one which got rejected, the person was shouting like, why mine is not moved, because I had an emergency. So I, being a Scrum Master, I had a discussion and I told that this situation is not in our control because it is a complete DevOps situation. We have to, before migrating, we have to raise a request that has to be approved based on the data we have provided. I have tried my best, but I'm having the discussion on. Let me figure out if I'm going to make the prod migration out of the scope, like already it is happened, but if it is on emergency, then let me talk and I can do the migration taking an exceptional case, so we can do that. So likewise, I had a discussion with the delivery head who was approving that implementations, and then he agreed and we migrated. So he was not happy with this scenario. Like he said
Okay.
that this is he
Uh-huh.
said this is not a conflict scenario. Then he himself gave me one
Great.
that
Yeah.
that he said that suppose you have a project to deliver and suddenly your stakeholder pop up in the middle of the project and he's asking to expedite a delivery, and he at the same time is asking for a unnatural goal, like we know it is not going to be feasible. So then my answer was, yeah, I do understand the situation, but thing is that I would like to understand first, why is he saying that, because it is not a day-to-day scenario. It is not happening every day. So as the scenario, he is just coming and saying, I need to first understand why is he saying that? What makes him saying this? Then he snapped me. He said that no, you are not going to have the discussion. You are just going to give a solution. I said, without having a discussion, without understanding his concern, how am I going to provide a solution to him? To provide something, I need to understand why the person is saying so. And then after listening to him patiently, then I'm going to provide a solution to him. Then he said, okay, you go ahead. What could the solutions you are going to provide? I said, and understand sometimes clients do it not a actual emergency, but it's kind of false alarm. They just want to expedite the thing. So that may be the one condition. There, if after having the discussion, if I felt so, then I can make him understand that we have a discussion, we have a negotiation in the initial phase, we have a scope document ready in place, we have a schedule attached to that, And now if we will deviate, then these are going to be the consequences. The quality may be compromised. Maybe after going live, we maybe end up in having more bugs. The code breakout is going to happen. So keeping everything in mind, I will suggest we will go with the schedule. In case of false alarm, false emergency, this approach I will take. The second approach, I listened the person and he said whatever he is saying, I got the point that he is having an actual emergency and he wants that things to be done before time. So in this case, I will have a discussion with my upper management and then we will provide extra manpower to that project and we will work extra hours we need to reschedule, we need to re-estimate our effort based on the existing schedule. And if we'll added this much manpower, then within these many days, we are going to accomplish that without compromising the quality, because we are also going to add test people on that project along with the dev people. Then he said, okay, what else? Said these are the two scenarios I am able to understand as of now. So apart from that, I was not having any answers. So what do you think? Was my approach correct, or
I think it's a little difficult conversation which was happening there. So let's start one by one. So I do see the both of the situation, the you brought in and the person gave the example, are stakeholder engagement related issue. Yeah, that's there. Can we classify them as a conflict? Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, one way is that it's a conflict is about difference of opinion. You are not in agreement with each other. Here, probably you are not putting any argument. If you say, no, no, we will go as per plan, and the stakeholder saying, no, no, we will not go as per plan, we will go early, then definitely it's a conflict. But if you are just listening and you are trying to figure it out, then probably it's a problem and it's a problem solving situation. So yeah, that's there. In the previous example also, there was a dissatisfaction related to an event, like my product is not going in production or whatever. So I'm dissatisfied and I'm raising my dissatisfaction, and you are taking care of dissatisfaction of that stakeholder by finding the alternatives. Yeah. So both of these points are basically handling the stakeholder and managing their dissatisfaction. I recently happened to interact with some of the other participants as well, informally, some of them our PMP clients, and they are also going for interview. Even we had a YouTube comment on our yesterday's conversation as well. And this theme is coming quite frequently, that you have an unrealistic demand. The stakeholders are saying that we need to finish it far early than previously planned. You need to finish the project in less than the budget you have estimated with. You need to finish the project earlier than what you have initially estimated with. How will you do? How will you act and respond to it? Yeah. So I think this is becoming a theme nowadays. And I personally believe it's more like testing your approach and your patience to handle these kind of question, because as you pointed out, it is very difficult to have a single point solution for such kind of things. If someone has these kind of single point solution, then we don't need people. Yeah, we can just put those solutions and we can just get started and resolve lots of issues. But it depends upon the case by case. It depends upon who is raising this point. So as you pointed out, I will do a problem solving. Yeah, I will do a problem solving. I will share what is possible. I will share what is not possible. We'll brainstorm about various possible alternatives. The alternatives could be incremental releases. The alternative would be reducing some scope for upcoming release and adding them at a later stage, or reducing the scope in totality. Figuring out what best we can do, either extending the timeline or reducing the scope, whatever we work together and listening to each other seems to be the answer. Yeah. So I think you demonstrated good example. If I have to do it again, probably I don't get into the conclusion of that we will add people and we will ask our management to do so. So maybe we don't know. Yeah, we don't know, is that thing needed? It depends upon various contract type also. If it's a time and material contract, adding people will be a cost to the client, and that stakeholder may not be authorized to do that. Or if it is a fixed price contract, then maybe adding people will be a cost to your company. So it depends. Yeah. So we can say yes, as we are looking for alternative. And many a time we also believe adding people to a project, especially in the later stage, may delay the whole process because it also required Tuckman ladder thing. People have to gel in, they need to communicate with each other. You need to train the new people, and by the time they become productive, it might be already late. So probably not to suggest adding people as a solution. That's the only possible thing I can probably say it. But we work out, because adding people is not going to make you fast, at least for a while. It can make you fast in long term. Yeah, it depends. If you have a very plug and play work which can be easily segregated, then adding people may make you fast. Yeah. But if the work is requiring a lot of interaction amongst the people, then adding people may not make you fast. That's the only thing. But I think it all depends how we communicate. And yeah, looks like your interviewer is a little aggressive. They are trying to push you to bring something out. But that's what I can suggest here. Yeah. So listen, figure out all the option, talk about what has happened in the past, talk about various facts and data, your previous performance, velocities, variances, whatever you have. Talk about your team strength and focus on what is possible. So rather than keep focusing on this can't be done, this can't be done, this can't be done, we focus on what can be done. So I communicate I start from the place of possibility. I focus on ground of possibilities, and then we explore together which ground of possibility is feasible for the stakeholder as well as for us. Yeah, that much I can say here. What do you think? Yeah.
Yes, Saket, I told them because while in the beginning, before answering, I said this if when they are saying that we need to do that and you don't have any other option rather than executing it. So I said it may bring some disadvantages to the system, to the scenario. And then after answering that, the person was asking, you mentioned that it may going to cause some problem. So what are those I want to listen? So I mentioned the points, not all, but the budget thing I mentioned, and the new people when some 3-4 people, a group of people are working in any project. It's a human tendency. They are acquainted to that process, to that product, and to that familiar to everything end to end. When we are going to put new people, or we are going to first I said that with the existing people, I will see if we are going to make it possible. If it is not, then I will suggest for adding new manpower because at any cost I have to deliver. So if you add people, then this is the problem we have to bring, because instead of expediting, we will get back, because the person who entered, they are going to be first, they should be trained on the existing process, on the existing product, whatever they are working on, and some amount of the working team is going to be vested or utilized here for the new people who entered in. So without disturbing them, we can we can just expedite or push over our existing team to communicate that stakeholder is asking for an early delivery, even though this date is not feasible, but we will try to expedite the process. Not in this date is not possible, somewhere we will communicate and convey the message to stakeholder that this is not going to be possible, this will be the next possible day when we are going to do. But after giving so many options or answers, the interviewers are not happy.
So again, that's a little specific thing, but just to add on thing, I think you made nice points. The additional thing, if you have to repeat this whole process again, probably you also focus on pointing out, yeah, the incremental delivery options. We can say, many a time it is possible to satisfy the customer without releasing the whole product, and I will explore if there is a possibility of incrementally splitting the work rather than focusing on the totality, because they need something early, but what is that thing they need early? Probably they don't need everything early. They need some specific things early. So I can figure that out.
Yeah, this is a valuable point actually. I didn't mention this. So whatever you mentioned, incremental delivery, that's going to make sense.
Yeah, so we can maybe, if you have to repeat again, so that's a possible thing you can add. But yeah, it all depends. It is very difficult to predict what the interviewer was looking, and because situations are a little vague. Yes.
Yeah. And the second question, Saket, the person was asking me, there were 2 user stories. and the user story 1 is having dependency on user story 2. Like until and unless user story 2 is not completed, the person is not going to initiate the user story 2. User story 1, sorry. So if isn't it deviating the invest criteria, because invest criteria is saying that the user story should be independent, negotiable, and what is that?
Yeah, all
Valuable,
those things. Yeah.
estimable, stable, static. So I said that yeah, it does says the theory says that it's an acronym. We kept a standard, but it doesn't mean while working in real-time scenario, there are dependencies. Like as my background is into data warehousing, I mentioned while loading the tables in ETL, we have dependencies. Party dimension is not going to be loaded until and unless couple of tables are not loaded. So then when we have a user story called party dim, load party dim, then we before that we have to load purchase team, before that we have to so many other dimensions we have to load. So they here in the real-time scenario we do have dependencies, theory says, but at the same time Scrum framework is purposefully incomplete because they made it incomplete so that Scrum says you implement and then you do an investigation and then you adapt based on your necessity. So it can be tailored, it can be customized. So by sticking to the theory, we cannot neglect on the real-time working scenario. Then the person says, I'm a layman. I don't know what is data warehousing. So give me a simple example where I can relate that, okay, I'm going to have a dependency. Then I said, okay, suppose it is an e-commerce website and people are developing the e-commerce website. So before developing the cart, we have to have an order table ready, we have to have an order page ready, then it should be navigated to cart. Then before making the payment system, the cart should be ready so that it is going to be, when we click on the submit, it is going to navigate to the payment gateway. So this payment gateway is having dependencies on the cart and cart having dependency on the purchase order creation page. So then he said, okay, but is it a good idea that I'm violating the basic scenarios or the basic principles? I said, sticking to the theory and struggling in the real time, is it going to make us successful? No. Whatever our demand, and based on that, we are going to tailor our need, and then we can proceed with the approach. So that is going to make us successful. And over time to time in the sprint retrospective, we do inspection and then adapt based on the need. Whatever we thought, is it working for us? Now we need any accommodation to that process, or any kind of action item needs to be taken to improvise our sprint delivery or to make our product more quantitative or qualitative. So these all factors depends on that. So I must say that sticking to the basic principles is not going to work in real-time scenario.
Okay. So see, what is the question here? I think the person was trying to understand, or probably what could be the purpose of this whole conversation. My guess is the person wants to understand what is your understanding of invest and how do you understand the independent part of invest. Yeah, that seems to be the question. So yes, we want to have stories as independent as possible so that we can prioritize them without thinking about other stories. So if there is a two stories, I can do story A first before doing the story B. But at the same time, we use a tool like user story map, we use a user story journey map to understand the journey of the user also. And there is going to be a logical flow. There is going to be a logical flow in order to complete the whole journey. Like you log in, you search, you purchase, and you check out. Yeah, but I should create less and less dependencies so that stories can be independently prioritized. Yeah, I should try to do that. Now, at the same time, the stories should also be small enough so they get done in a one sprint. That's also a criteria. And many a time when I'm splitting the story, I may also create a logical flow. For example, there is a story which is talking about create a user profile. And it is becoming too big. So I'm create a user profile and update a user profile. Now, can I do update a user profile first before doing a create a user profile? So I should create a system where I can do, yeah, probably I need to populate the data and then I can just let the user do an update without having create, but it will create an additional work for me. I need to create some small data script to populate the data, then only we can do the update part of user story. So in order to facilitate the easy prioritization, easy working, we want to make stories as independent as possible. But at the same time, there is going to be a logical flow. There is going to be a minimum must-have stories. We want to finish them first. And we want to prioritize the stories in such a manner, yeah, which takes care of these logical flows. Yeah, so there is a dependency in that manner. Now, if the dependency is done in such a way, there is a story which is creating a UX, and there is another story which is creating the middle layer of it. And when these two stories will get done, the small slice of functionality will get done. That is not expected to be there. So we want to make the story independent, validatable. I don't have to have a create story for a user profile. I can directly have an update story and I can validate that. If I can do that, it's an independent story. Though the logical sequence talks about let's create the story and then update the story. But I will explain my users that if we take against the logical sequence, I need to do the extra work. And sometimes they want me to do an extra work also. They will say, okay, focus on payment, not focus on orders. I will say, okay, we will populate the order using text file. And then we will directly focus on payment. But even though we don't have an order functionality created, but we are creating a payment functionality first. Yeah. And you can do it because it's an independent user story. So I create the user story which is independent to prioritize, independent to test. But yes, there is a logical flow of the user stories. And I prefer to go in a logical flow of the execution because it reduces the rework. But there could be some exceptions where you want to breach the logical flow. And when you want to breach the logical flow, we need to do extra work. We will educate our stakeholders, and based on that, we will work. Yeah. So I think that is probably they are looking in case of having conversation around it. You not necessarily have to go into theory, principles, and all those kind of conversation, because there are few people who are too theoretical in nature. They just like theory to be perfect, and they may make a comment, this guy doesn't have a fundamentals right. Yeah, or there could be another person who may not like the theory at all. They want to remain in practical world. So I don't criticize the theory. I don't say it's a practical word. I just focus on simple examples. And I say, this is how it is and this is how we have to do it. We can do it. We want to make it as independent as possible. There are dependency, and those dependencies helps us in prioritizing the work less in a better manner. And we can reduce the extra effort we end up doing if we don't follow the logical sequence. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. The way I answered it was little aggressive.
Yeah, so I think again, it depends upon energies also. Since those people were showing little aggressiveness, you were also trying to prove your point. So
Yeah,
you got
because
carried
I was
away.
being
Yes.
snapped.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
trying to give answers also, I snap. They used to snap minimum 5 to 6 times. So
Yeah, yeah.
maybe that's the reason.
Yes, yes, yes. That seems to be the case, when you also have a reciprocal energy. So someone is pushing you, you also start pushing back. And some people try to test that only. Some people, because nowadays, the jobs are less and the people are many. So there are different kind of peoples. And few may just want to trigger you. Yeah, just want to see, this guy can sustain this pressure or not. And based on that, they will choose their appropriate bets. Yeah, so there is a possibility. But again, it could be conscious decision, it could be unconscious behavior as well. But nowadays, you should be ready for aggressive interviewer as well, and don't get carried away into their thoughts. Yeah.
No, I didn't raise my voice. My approach was friendly, but the way I answered, like practically and theoretically, that may be, as
Yeah.
you said,
Yeah.
that may
Yeah.
be.
Perfect. Yeah. What else?
As we cannot read the front person's mind in what
Yeah.
prepare the question in a neutral way so that it is not going to trigger at any point of time. Yeah, got it.
Perfect. Yeah.
Next question was second that how to calculate WIP limit in a Kanban team. And is it a possibility that we need to avoid or deviating from the WIP limit? That the Kanban board is there, but we don't have any WIP limit over there. And by doing so, are we not deviating again? This relating to the previous question. So
looks
I
like the
meant,
theory was too much.
yeah. So they gave me an option that it has a 10-member team, and how you are going to put a WIP limit on that. Honestly, I was not able to recollect how to calculate WIP limit because I never did, honestly. So, as per the standard practice, we always keep a WIP limit of 3 to 4. It may vary up to 5 also based on the complexity of the work, or the inflow is too much. In some teams, the work is like every day the priority is going to shift. So something was working on yesterday, and today again they got a new priority. They have to put a pause on that and start on the new item. I was in a recent client. I was part of a team where they were used to get many triages, many queries in both internally and externally. So based on the priority on who is shouting out, the team is shouting out more, then we have to put that query in top priority. And there are a lot of dependencies, interdependencies. So suppose a work came, and that piece of tries having dependency over 3 teams. So the first person from my team has done his part, then he has to pass on to the second has to pass on to the third, and then it will come back in a loop to the first person who did on my team. So till that time, the query has to be in our board because it is a prioritized work item and we cannot neglect that. But at the same time, we are not continuously working on that. We have done our part. Now we are waiting for our turn to come. And in this scenario, putting a WIP limit is little hard because every day the priority is shifting. Even though keeping the team should be focused and the delivery should be faster, keeping every point in mind, we can stick to a point where team is not going to work more than 6-7 items. But honestly, Saket, in that team, it was varying to 8 to 9. It was a 1 month sprint,
Okay.
and that the inflow was so high, and every day the priority used to shift. So the person is going to work on item A today, item B on second day. On the third day, again, he will put some effort on item A and some effort on item B. Again, item C he is going to pick up. So this is a very complex kind of environment. So I give this scenario which was matching to their expectation. Then he said, there is a team of 10 members, give me a WIP limit for that. So I said, we can keep it in between 3 to 4. And when he was asking how to calculate on that, I mentioned that WIP limit is something going to be calculated based on the inflow of the project. If any ad hoc requests we are getting, or the basic default WIP rule, what Kanban suggests, we can keep in between 3 to 4 if the team is of 10 members. Member.
Okay.
But I was not happy with my answer, Saket, honestly. So, because I don't have much to say over here.
So what we need to understand is that what is WIP limit? Now, WIP limit can be applied at multiple levels. You can have Kanban board level WIP limit, which seems to be your interpretation. But usually by default, we focus on column level WIP limit. So you may have a workflow steps and you focus on at any point in time for a given step, we want to have this much WIP limit. It can be applied at a type of work item also, like for a defects, we will have these many WIP limits. For expedite work, we want to have this kind of WIP limits. And it could be combination of these things also. You may have a column level WIP limit, and then you may have a work item type or a class of service. They're different words they use, but you can say the type of escalation may also have, expedite work may also have a separate WIP limits. So you can create these WIP limits in a multiple ways. The objective of WIP limit is just to ensure that things keeps moving and we produce a lead time which is effective, which is acceptable. So reducing the overall lead time is the goal of WIP limit. And we keep monitoring our current lead time, and accordingly we decide, do we need to reduce the WIP limit? If the lead time is increasing, so work in progress has to be reduced. If the lead time is stable, or if the lead time is good and we can tolerate little bit delay in it, we can increase the work in progress limit. So that's a basic way of figuring out. There is no calculation formula there. Now, in general, people do start with, so say if you have a multiple stages, stage A, stage B, stage C, and the number of people working in that stage, you may have some factor of that. Sometimes people say, if I have a 2 people, I may multiply it by 1.5. Sometimes you start with, if you have a 2 people, I will take 4 as a stage number, because you might be working on something and you might be waiting for something to come back to you. There could be a query you raise, so you don't want to wait for it. But usually the WIP is expected for a column is expected to be more than number of people working. So if you say that I have a 10 people and we keep a WIP limit of 3 for a given column, for example, then it only means that multiple people are working on the same item. Yeah. So that has to be explained. You can, and the work should be like this, where in a given stage, multiple people can work on a same item and move it forward. That's why you can say, we have a WIP limit, which is less than number of people, but that is a little unusual. So we need to find out what are the stages and what kind of WIP limits for those stages are there. The one of the factor is the person working in that stage and multiplied by 2. That could be a starting point, but overall, I should have information about my lead time. And I say this lead time is acceptable. We want to also keep our people busy. We always want to have something ready for them. So we are balancing the people busy and our lead time forecast. And that's why we are keeping this particular WIP limit. Now, you may have a columns, you may have a stages where you are dependent on someone else. So that can be managed without counting into a WIP limit also. You can make your explicit policy that things which are waiting for someone else may not be counted in our work in progress limit. You may create a separate column also. You can say there is a column on our board which talks about pending feedback from someone else, and we may have a high limit there. We can say we don't want to put infinite limit there, but we put a limit of 10 so that we don't have too many items getting piled up there. So that is also possible. We can create these kind of buffer columns which are beyond the control of our team, but we want to visualize how many of those are there, and we want to track the age of the item in that column also. So we know for how long we are waiting for other team to come back to us. So if we manage the board like this, all these kind of reporting can come from your Jira or your Azure DevOps, because they can track the column and the age in the column, and it can help you in managing your reporting as well. Other team is taking on average this much time to get back to us. Those kind of reporting can come. So this all I have to tell. Is it possible to have no WIP limits? So there could be a buffer columns where we have infinite WIP limits, like an inflow of work. That column may not have any work in progress limit. Sometimes when you are dependent on some other team, those columns may not have a work in progress limits. But the overall idea of defining work in progress limit in Scrum or in Kanban to keep the thing moving from one stage to another stage, and how much is good, the thing which keeps moving things from one stage to another stage, that's the only criteria. I should have an input for a lead time. But by default, I can start with 2 people, one person working on 2 items at that given point in time max, and that could be my starting point.
Because I was not satisfied with my answer. So I just want to understand the way you narrated it is absolutely perfect. So we'll move to the next one second.
Yeah.
The person was asking that you have a new team which just transitioned from waterfall to agile, and what all agile matrices are you going to use to keep a track on how your team is working? So my answer was, when a team is newly transitioned, they have a lot of struggle, they have a lot of challenges to adapt themselves in the Scrum or Agile way of working. So in the initial phase, keeping the track by calculating or measuring via matrices is going to be tough, or it may be going to demoralize our team based on the results. So my approach will be, being a Scrum Master or Agile coach, I'll continuously monitor my team because they are new team. Until these many times, they were in a pattern of work where they were giving the work and then they were working. So it is then going to take ample amount of time to them to be accommodate the Scrum way of working and become an individual or self-disciplined team. And while guiding or monitoring them continuously, because in a new team it may happen, team sometimes overcommit, team sometimes undercommit, sometimes they overestimate, sometimes they underestimate. So these things are continuously happening in a new team. These are the struggles. While maintaining the board, updating the board, that may be a challenge. So I will keep a monitor over there. At the same time, from my end, I will maintain the matrices, the burn down chart, and I will keep, because team may forget to burn their hours. If they will not burn down the hour on the ALM tool, we are not going to get a burn down chart. So I will put a reminder before the stand up that team please update the Scrum board and put your efforts, and then before the stand up. So I can address that concern, point one. And in second, I will all velocity to measure the velocity. Then he was asking, they snapped and they asked that, what about the velocity? I said, when a team newly transitioned and started working, it is going to take us little amount of time, at least 5 to 6 sprints to get an average of the velocity, how the team is performing. Because in one sprint, they may deliver out of 20 stories, they may deliver 18. In the second, if the work scope is going to change and they are get different sort of work or some new issues add in, some new enhancements added in that sprint, the delivery speed may going to be affected because the pattern of work they got are different. So there they may completed 10 stories out of 18 or 10 stories out of 20. And then again in the third sprint, they may deliver again the work pattern was similar, whatever they are working in, and they may deliver in a better way, like 18 out of 20. So to get an average velocity for a new team, it is advisable to wait for 5 to 6 sprints to take an average, like the complete number of stories, aggregated number of complete number of user stories delivered, divided by the number of iterations. Then I may keep a matrix that capacity utilization, because in a new team that is also another struggle, like the planned work, the unplanned work, the corporate overhead. If it is going to change or it need any adjustment, then I also keep a track of that matrix to do a fully potential capacity utilization of my team. The third may be, if it depends on the team structure, if they're getting same sort of work, or like I gave an example of a production support environment. Suppose they're getting tickets and they're working on the issue and they're moving on. So that kind of thing, it sometimes happen, that team are getting the enhancements, very fewer enhancements. Like for the inflow, for this team is slow. So the unplanned amount of work for the enhancements are going to be like, suppose 10% or 5% I reserve for this sprint if I'm going to one enhancement for a month. There are teams where the enhancement or ad hoc requests are more in different type of team. The team is working on development and they are also responsible for the sustenance work. So there we are putting a 10% reservation for the sustenance effort, and we have a roster how our team is going to be, one person is not going to be used for the support activity. That person also gets some hands on the development thing. So we have a roster and we are dividing like this. So all kind of possibilities I will keeping in mind while doing the capacity utilization thing. And the third, and the scope change metrics as well. So, and along with that, I mentioned burn down, and for velocity, we need some time. Then they were asking what else matrices are there. I said there are many. There are response time, there are cycle time, there are lead time, there is CFT, and one more thing I mentioned, burnout. But then immediately the person was asking how to read a CFT, how to read a CFT chart in your project. I mentioned CFT is nothing but whatever I mentioned, the response time, the cycle time, the lead time, the throughput. everything we are going to read out of CFT. And then he was asking, are you sure about this? Are we going to read these figures out of one chart? I said, yes, that cumulative flow diagram is for that. And we are going to measure these matrices out of CFT. Then the next question was, I'm just forgetting, missing the flow. The next question was,
go ahead,
yeah, he was asking what is throughput. I said throughput is nothing but within a particular time frame, whatever user stories we have processed. Then his next question was, is it processed or it is done? So I got little confused. I mentioned that it is done. Like within suppose in a month, we want to see how many user stories we have completed, then that figure we are going to get it from a throughput metrics. Then the person was asking, are you sure? Anything else you are forgetting? I said, no, this much, how much ever I know, I just mentioned. If anything I'm missing, help me in adding on them. This was my answer.
Yeah. So let's start from the beginning. So see, the intent which I understand here is the interviewer wants to understand how much familiarity you have about the metrics and what kind of metrics you feel are important. And what do you think that how can we quickly get started with matrices even if you have a new team? So with these all three intention, this person asked this particular question. Any team started working, I can probably remind that matrices are the mechanism of bringing facts in front of the team so that we can brainstorm, we can do retrospective about it and find how can I make our upcoming sprints fun, productive, and fruitful and satisfying to stakeholders as well. So I need to know, I as a Scrum Master, project manager, need to provide some non-controversial fact-oriented data which helps my team in moving forward. And for that, I use the matrices. Yeah, that's the starting point. Now I need to see what kind of problems they are facing and what is the organization recommendation also, because such kind of things also work as per my PMO guidance as well. But in general, I can definitely start with one matrix. Have we achieved the sprint goal or not? So I can definitely have a yes-no matrix. We set up a sprint goal, we meet it or don't meet it, we talk about it. So how many, now you can bring off, you are keeping the sprint goal matrix at a yes-no status, or you want to create a sprint goal or iteration goal matrix at a percentage status, how much percentage we have achieved a sprint goal. Percentage status may becomes a little complicated, but may give little information also. So whatever we are doing, we should know have we met the goal or not. And that should be clear in front of everyone so that we can reflect from it. So that's the easiest matrix to start with. The another type of matrix is the type of work we are handling. You spoke about tickets and all. So that's a good thing. So at the end of a sprint, we can talk about how many defects we have handled, how many user stories we have handled, how many customers escalation we handled. We just count them and whatever we have closed. And that's a throughput also. That's a throughput matrix in a way, but we can count various types of throughput. We can type various type of work items and we can have a throughput matrix which gives us some sense what we have done. So these two matrices does not require any focus on estimation. Even if our story point estimations are not matured, still these two metrics can get started with. We can have other quality related matrices which can also get without much controversy, like defect related matrices, code coverage, automation related matrices, which ensures that we are having our healthy code base or we are not generating rework. We can have a rework related matrices also, which are just pointing it out, how much rework got generated in a given sprint. Now, when we talk about goal metrics, we can also talk about the story planned but not finished, story partially finished. We can have a spillover metrics as well, which focuses on we planned some stories, we did a partial completion of the stories, and we could not finish them. That is also something gives us a reflection that it is also a type of waste we are generating. So again, recommending a matrix might be a difficult thing, but based on all these ideas, we can collaborate and we can take few, not too many. It's not like I want to have 10 matrices. Probably we can have some detailed matrices which are for general team use, but at a top level, 4 or 5 matrices are good enough. That's something I can put across. Now, a burn down chart, yes, if you are doing sprint level work in the hours and then you are also putting those hours on a daily basis, then you can focus on burn down as well. But sometimes it takes time before people really understand burn down. So may not be a good idea to start with. You can talk about your experience, but if you feel the team is ready, you may go with the burn down chart as well. Calculating velocity may become further complication because velocity required stability in a story point estimation. And maybe the people are still struggling to put a story points to the stories. But if that struggle has been passed through, then we can also start summing up the velocity and we start calculating sprint by sprint velocity. So I need to establish story pointing standards first, or a kind of a behavior or practice first in a consistent manner, so that we can go for velocity calculation and use that as a feedback for our upcoming work. Yeah, so that all can be used. Yes, cumulative flow diagram is a visualization of flow of your Kanban board, what has happened in the past 1 month, 15 days, how things have moved from one stage to another stage, where things got blocked, where things were too many, where the work in progress was increasing, where it was narrowing down. The trend of the flow movement from one stage to another stage can be seen with the help of cumulative flow diagram. It can give you a hint of your lead time, cycle time, but you may have your more accurate lead time, cycle time calculation based on the raw data. You may create your lead time histogram or cycle time things based on each and every ticket. Yes, it gives a sense of it, but not necessarily it tells you a more systematic way the lead time and cycle time. Yes, you can see the horizontal line, and you can see the length of the line can give you a lead time. If you are putting the horizontal line between two stages, it can give you a cycle time also. But that is not very accurately calculated. Accurately calculated cycle time, lead time can be seen in other matrices rather than just focusing on cumulative flow diagram. Yes, it shows throughput very well. It does show that the end column, the slope of your line in the end column shows the throughput. It is very clearly showing the work arrival and work departure. So whatever the first column is showing, if the curve is going high in the first column, you can see the lot of work is getting added. If a lot of work is getting departure, you can see a departure column from there. But usually you can say that in the initial stage, I probably don't talk about cumulative flow diagram. Yes, Jira plots the cumulative flow diagram pretty nicely. We have a video about that as well. Azure DevOps also plots it, but it's a little difficult tool to see it. If you are following Kanban way of working, then it may becomes your primary tool. If you are following Scrum way of working, you probably don't worry about cumulative flow diagram in the initial stages. Yeah.
Yes, Saket, I do agree. I did mention this point when you mentioned, right, that we do have separate matrices. When I initially attempted, I mentioned that these are the separate matrices to see and the performance of my team, and accordingly I can guide. And the person I was asking what is CFD and how to read, then I add that these are the
Perfect.
things we can read out of from CFD. Then his next question was, if CFD is only for Kanban framework or it is also part of Scrum. I said, yeah, in Scrum also we do gaze CFD. But as you said, I did mention the same point. For a new team, it is not going to play a role in initial days. It is going to take some ample amount of time to come to that phase. So that was my response.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah.
And then the next question, Saket, the person was asking, suppose you are an agile coach and you are going to deploy in a team which is a very huge team having 300 team members. And what will be your approach? You tell me stepwise and your responsibility here is first implement the Scrum over there, Agile framework over there, and then you have to, being a Scrum Master, you have to will be part of the delivery, like implementation part. Apart from the implementation, you are also responsible for managing the teams. Then my response to that before that I just asked them one question, that when I'm being deployed, is it already negotiated it before deployment? There are some level of discussions. So in the discussions, did we educate them that where the team is having this many numbers, then what kind of agile framework works over there? Is this basic the discussions round already happened, or I'm going to do everything from the scratch? The discussions I'm going to have, and then I'm going to make them educate. Our organization just give me this project to handle in a from scratch to delivery. They said, no, we just had a initial level of demo that we are implementing, and one of our expert is going to come and then implement this. So you are the single point of contact who is going to have the discussion with the stakeholders, different level of stakeholders, and then you are going to implement. Then post implementation, you will be the agile coach or scrum master for those teams. So how you are going to do? Then I said, okay, my first approach will be having discussions with, once I enter, I have discussions with all my stakeholders. So then the person snapped and he said, discussion is not going to help here, madam. You have to tell me the steps, what will be your approach and how you are going to do. Then I said, yeah, I do understand. But before implementing something, before giving a solution, I should understand the people first. I should understand the organization, their work pattern, what kind of challenges they are having in the current scenario. Because when some organization is ready for a transition from one pattern of project management to another pattern, then they might have some pain points which they want to be addressed. So to understand that, I have to have a discussion first. I need to understand, as you said, we don't have any suggestions for them, and I'm the person who is going to do from scratch. So I have to first do the discussions with all level of stakeholders, and then I need to understand what are the pain points. And when they every details has been shared, then I will come up with a next step as a plan, as part of the plan, that these are the basic frameworks, and these work in this way for different type of pattern of work or organization or industry of work. And as your team has a huge team, it is a huge team, it has 300 team members. So simple scrum framework is, or simple Kanban is not going to work here. Rather we will go for a less, or we will go for a safe kind of implementation for your team. And in safe also, we do have categories for small people, like between 150 range. We can go for essential or combination kind of. And then if the team is ahead of 150, then we will go for the portfolio and value stream level implementation. Then I have to make them educate all this, and accordingly I can prepare my training material by keeping, after having the discussion, by understanding their pain. I will, because in my presentation I'm going to present the part I understood, and after in the during the presentation and post presentation phase also, I'm going to seek their advice, like by having the, while having the initial discussion, these are the points I understood in the present. Present these many issues, are there anything left? Do you want to add anything else we have discussed? So these will be the approach. And this is not a single day or not a 1 month 15-day thing we are going to do. Yeah, I'll take the meeting, I'll take the training, I'll make the people educate, I'll have Q&A sessions. If they want to have 2 or 3, I have to have for that. Then we can go for the next will be, if it is a less or a safe environment, then based on that, if the organization is already having scrum masters in some or the other way, then we can include them. If they don't have any, then we can go for a hiring process. That would be one point in the mandate also. And then post that, we have to train all the scrum masters, and we will come up with a, I will come up with a working agreement. Not I, as a team, we all come up with a working agreement, and I may facilitate that meeting to make everyone understood that we have these many set of principles.
So yeah, what I can say is that your questions got little detailed, and what possibly it can improve is providing a structure to it. What I suspect is this person is trying to understand that do you understand some kind of transformation frameworks and model? And if understand, tell me the steps related to that framework. That seems to be the desired answer from this guy. And probably you got into explaining the things, but not pointing out a possible steps one takes to achieve the transformation. So if
Mhm.
like in our agile coaching classes, we talk about transformation. So there are two frameworks which are usually popular. You can probably mix and match. So say you can say, like if I have to answer, so it depends. It's too much dependent on how the overall context is. But I understand doing a 300 people transformation, we will follow the ADKAR plus quarter model to come up with the overall the strategy for transformation. Now, the ADKAR talks about 5 steps process. It talks about we need to create awareness about the change. We need to create desire in the people to support the change. Then we need to create knowledge about the change. We need to create ability about the change. And we need to bring a process to reinforce the change. So you spoke about I will provide training, mentoring, and all those things are included here. It just put a little structure. So the awareness about the change, I need to talk to the management and make sure that I use them to talk about why they want to change. So we need to have a compelling why to start with. We need to talk to the people and ensure that they are motivated for this change because they see their future growth, their career growth because of this change in the way of working. And then I need to figure out the capability building process, mentoring process, community of practices process, matrices process as a reinforcement tool. So that possibly they wanted to hear, possibly, I'm not sure. So that's a one way
Mhm.
of explaining. The quarters way of working is little at a bigger organization level, where it starts with working with the management to create a compelling vision for the change, then figuring out the pilot site. You communicate about the vision, you bring the motivated teams to join in, and then you pick up a pilot one or two, then you develop ADKAR capability in that particular pilot, and then you build them, show the success, and bring more teams towards it. So by combining these two ideas and combining the essence of the organization, you will come up with a customized approach. So in general, it is all about creating a compelling why. It is bringing the right stakeholder who can communicate why we are changing. It is motivating the team and individuals so they really want to support the change. Then it is focusing on identifying a pilot to start with rather than involving all the 300 people to jump into it. Maybe we identify 2, 3, 4 teams to start with, and then making sure that those things are communicated well. We have a mentoring process in place, we have a reinforcement process in place, and that takes the whole process forward. So these are like usual transformations are done. I'm not sure what kind of answers they were looking for. And this is a topic which we discuss in our agile coaching classes or any transformation class you look at. So this possibly could help you if you want to explore more. The Kotter's 8-step process, they have a free ebook. You can search Kotter's 8-step process. You will reach to the Kotter site. You can download it. You can also
Okay.
write ADKAR on the Google and says ADKAR framework for change. You will reach to a Prosky site. You will get the document around there and you can download from there as well. And
Saket, sorry to disturb. It is ad card, ADDCART, or
yeah,
what is that?
ADKAR. Yeah, so awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, reinforcement. Yeah.
Okay. No, Saket, I was not aware. I just got the answer from you because the teams I transitioned till date was max to max a 50 members team,
Yeah, so no
30.
problem. So again, we don't have to have all the answers right, but if you see this is becoming a trend along with the Scrum Master profile nowadays, and which is we see as a trend also, and that's why we are seeing a lot of participant in our agile coaching class. They are coming from Scrum Master and project management background. So we are also seeing the same trend where the agile coaches are no more as separate people. They are not like we bring someone and they will transform and they will go home. Uh, that is becoming less frequent nowadays.
It
What
is
they
a
are hoping,
combination, yeah.
yeah, they are hoping
Yeah.
is they have a scrum master or they have a project manager. Sometimes they have a title called project manager also. And the scrum masters and project managers are expected to take care of transformation. They are expected to support their team. They are expected to create a right environment for the transformation. And they will help us in bringing the change. Even in our PMP content, we have a transformation topics added now. A PMI has added because they see that's going to be a trend. So that could be probably a learning opportunity. You may want to learn about transformation because it is becoming pretty much a job of a Scrum Master nowadays or a project manager nowadays. Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah.
for this answer. And two last questions, Saket. One is they are asking me stakeholder management metrics. So the one I know, the one is the widely used power interest metrics. I just mentioned the same. They want to hear more if other than that we do have, so which I was not sure on, so I couldn't answer.
So I'm not sure. We don't use a word nowadays management. We use a word engagement. So probably we need to understand what kind of metrics they are asking for. But in our PMP content, we do talk about power interest grid. It's more like a brainstorming tool rather than a documentation. It's not like something you document, you make people see that. It's not
No,
like
it
that.
is a keep changing metrics because it
Yeah.
may change as the stakeholders are changing over time to time.
Yeah, it's a keep
Everything I
changing,
mentioned.
and it is a kind of confidential also. It is not it's a tool rather than an artifact. Yeah. So artifact is something we store, we refer, we show in the meetings and all. The tool is something we use in order to identify how do we work with stakeholder. That's a one matrix. On a similar line, we have a stakeholder engagement assessment matrix in case of PMP. That is talks about we put the ID of the stakeholders in a one side, then we have a various engagement level, resistor, supporter, leading, neutral, those kind of level. And then we talk about which stakeholder is where, maybe a current state by C, and where do we want to take them at a desired stage. But again, it's a brainstorming tool. I don't have to make a photo of it and paste it. This stakeholder is resistor and we want to take him to a leading stage. That could be a little controversial and derail the whole process. But this could be a brainstorming tool where we analyze it and we come up with a strategy. The strategy we work upon. So if we realize that this person has to be taken into a leading position and these are the strategies we want to apply, we work on those strategies. So I don't know, maybe they are just looking for you explaining these two tables to them, probably. I'm not sure, but these are the two stakeholder connected metrics we talk in our PMP content. They are tools rather than artifacts.
Yeah, I mentioned that the power interest grid. Then after that, he was asking how to track it. I don't want to use a specific tool, whatever available in market because of XYZ reason. Even though I want to keep that grid, then how do I do that? So I said in Excel we can do that. So then he was asking Excel how we'll do that. I said the exact way in chart I'll prepare X axis and Y axis. Then I'll put a I am just I'm lack of the sentence here. What's so then I mentioned that it can be done in Excel. I don't know what he was looking for, but this
Yeah,
much, whatever he knew, I just told from my end. And
perfect.
the last question, second, they were asking that what is a Scrum anti-pattern? And what do you mean by that? And under what conditions or criteria we are going to register these things? I don't have an answer for that, so
So
I couldn't.
anti-pattern is something which you can say the people follow, but it is assumed to be not a good thing to follow. So it's a commonly seen mistakes with Scrum. Yeah, so that's a Scrum anti-pattern. That's a simple word. I don't know why people make
Okay.
things complicated, but that's a Scrum entry pattern. Now, what can go wrong? People can say, oh, there could be a one entry pattern where we do no backlog refinement. We just come in a sprint planning meeting without having backlog refinement. That could be an anti pattern. We may have an anti pattern where we have not splitting the user stories in a vertical format. We split it into a horizontal format. That could be an entry pattern. Probably they may want to talk about what kind of bad practices with Scrum you have seen and how you improved them over a period of time. So you can say, I saw that there was poor backlog refinement and which was producing a poor sprint planning and we were not meeting sprint goal. So I worked closely with my stakeholders and we reached to a stage where we started improving our backlog refinement practices in a better manner. So I fixed that particular anti-pattern. I can explain that. Yeah, I can talk about the anti-pattern where management attends the daily stand-up meeting. Yeah, yeah. So there could be n number of things which might be repeated and going wrong, but I need to pick up some of the one which are relevant. The organization is only focusing on velocity. They always want to increase the velocity. And as a result of it, team started putting the story point at a higher number, and they started diluting the definition of done, and they keep marking the stories done and done, so that we have a high velocity, but customers are not satisfied. So that was a bad pattern you saw, bad practice you saw, and then you worked on it, which helps you in improving that. So it's all depend upon what kind of bad scrum you saw and how you improved it. Yeah, so you can make that people make list of various type of entry patterns, the technical entry patterns, poor definition of done and all. But I believe it should be supported by what happened in your experience. And the next question would be that how do you address them? How do you take care of it? That's something you need to focus on.
Yeah, got it. It's like in retro, whatever points we are addressing in other word, in simple word, we can say whatever action items we are taking to improvise that. This is similar to that. But we are decorating it with a new term like Scrum anti-pattern. So as I never heard of, I don't know, I was little not, I may need to keep myself updated. I'm little up to out of date, so because of so many struggles. So that may be one point I missed it.
Perfect.
One last question, yeah, one last question, Saket. The person was asking what is a hardening sprint, and
That's an anti-pattern, one of the anti-pattern. Yeah.
and
That's the
why
one.
should we use that?
Yeah,
I
so that's the
said,
one of the anti-pattern. You can say.
yeah, now I got it. This question was before. Actually, the last question was the anti-pattern question in the interview. I just recall this hardening sprint, so I'm adding. So I mentioned that hardening sprint is something that before delivering to the client, we are doing a quality check, the code check, everything
Perfect.
is working perfect from our end, but it does not fit in all the environments. And where we are doing a TDD, test driven development environment, along with Scrum or along with Kanban, it is a hybrid structure. Like the developer is developing and immediately the tester is picking and testing. In that kind of environment, hardening, then the question was like that. Like in under which scenarios you don't need a hardening sprint. If you have worked in such an environment, please narrate that. So I was just adding on that in that kind of environment where we are doing proper unit checks, then we do check our code coverage is up to the mark, whatever mentioned set as per with respect to our organizational standard, and we are doing a quality check. Under these scenarios, we don't need a hardening sprint because everything is in place and the increments are working. Whatever we are delivering, they are working as per the expectations. So this is the one scenario I just added over there. So what do you think, Saket? The answer
So
was
see, the simple thing is, what is hardening sprint? You are doing something special activity towards the end to make it ready for customer releases. Yeah, and that particular sprint, sometime you call it hardening sprint. Why are you doing it? Because you have not done it before. Why you have not
yes.
done it before? Because it was not part of your definition of done. So if my sprint level definition of done is equal to customer release and it really equate potentially shippable product increment, then I don't need hardening sprint. But if my sprint level definition of done has a gap and that gap has to be filled before I make customer release, then I need to do sometime that gap filling work. And one of the possible way of doing that gap filling work is a hardening sprint. Yeah, that's one of the possible way. I can have that gap added as a product backlog item and I can fill that gap later also. But whatever delta I have between my DOD and my releasable DOD, I need to do some point in time. And some organization end up clubbing 3 sprints and they says, let's do the delta work now and make the release and then move forward. Yeah, that's the reason. Now, what is the risk associated with this delta work done after 3 iteration? There is a possibility this delta work may expand and it may create more defects, more issues for the work which you have already finished before. So you are postponing the feedback for that particular delta work, and that can derail your previously finished work and create a lot of rework for you. So that's a risk associated. I need to be very critically seeing what is the probability of this delta work create a rework for me. If the probability of that delta work creating rework is less, for example, it's just a compliance work and all, hardly anything to do with our quality test, then I can probably live with that hardening sprint. Probably I can say, let's not focus on compliance work, documentation, user manual all the time. We will do it once we have a 3 sprints done, we have a product ready, we'll do all this work towards the end, and then we'll make a ship, because it is not going to give a feedback before. Then probably it can work. But if you see that during that point in time, you are doing integration test and all, and you discover some defects and you are revisiting your whole process again, then it creates a lot of rework for you, and you should not be doing it. Yeah, so simple. The gap in definition of done needs to be fixed at some point in time, and someone pick up hardening sprint for finishing that particular gap.
Yeah, got it.
Great. Yeah, so I think these are some of the ideas, and you can also post the queries in our YouTube videos section as well. If you have a specific 101 level, maybe some of these things I can find out in our current content as well and share, or we can add some additional video if needed. But I think this is how we can take it forward. Yeah.
Sure, Saket. At this point of time, I'm not able to recollect, but I think that if I'm going to force on, I may get 2-3 questions. As you said, I'll post it on your YouTube channel.
Most likely you will find the answer also if you just put it on the YouTube channel and put an Eisenbridge with your question.
Yeah.
So the YouTube will search accordingly. If you can't get the complete one, then post it there. We will add it there. Yeah.
Answer is like, Saket, I know the answer. If I'll narrate one question like that, suppose the person asks me that a very common question we are hearing. Once I'll say you got to know that your product owner is coming back with a lot of work, ad hoc requests. How do you manage that? So that is a question. So my attempt was, I said, see, when I'm entering into a team as a Scrum Master, in the initial phase only, while having the discussions with my product owner, with other stakeholders, I got to know what kind of work they are into, that particular team. Are they getting ad hoc requests very frequently? Are they getting their work is predictive and it is stable? They are getting tickets and they are just sorting it out. And by understanding that pattern of work, then that time itself we can conclude on the framework, whatever we are going to implement. Like it can be a Scrum. As Scrum, if the team is getting too much ad hoc request and it is a development effort as well, then I can go for a Scrum-Ban approach, which is a combination of Scrum plus Kanban. So there, as Scrum is not allowing us to pull items in mid of the sprint, but Kanban does allow. So we can keep a combination. So these kind of issues we can address at that initial level of phase. After having this, suppose I had and we have everything in place, but the product owner came up with ad hoc request, then at that point of time we have to understand, then we have to evaluate what is the priority or what is the business goal or business need we are going to achieve out of that request. It may be a proper need, because product owner is not someone who is going to trouble the team, right? He is a person who is going to help the team with the product knowledge, and he is the person who is going to give us the technical clarity whenever team need about the product. So this is my approach. And then the person was like, so you are saying that product owner is a friendly person to your team and he doesn't bother. Suppose there is a scenario that product owner is a troublemaker, like he knowingly coming and doing that, so troubling team is not able to focus on the sprint goal. Then how you are going to tackle that scenario? And this scenario is very specific, and whatever you answered, I'm buying out that, but this is my scenario, how we are going to approach for help your team or to save your team from this situation. Then I said that I need to have a one-on-one discussion with my product owner. That if this kind of changes are going to happen, I cannot say him stop this. You are not troubling my team. These are the things I cannot say him. So I will have a discussion, and I want to understand why this ad hoc requests we are if all of a sudden it started, if from the beginning, suppose I'm a new Scrum Master,
What
I
I
entered in.
suggest here is, I think
Yeah.
you probably want to spend some time and focus on coaching body of knowledge, because the Scrum Masters are expected to exhibit the coaching skills nowadays a lot. Yeah, that's something coming out from your questions and your conversations there. And that could be an area of improvement. So learn about coaching. Now,
Okay.
overall thing which we are saying is, any situation, I don't have to create that situation as a conflict situation. I want to understand, is it because of lack of knowledge? Is it because of lack of seriousness about the consequences of the work? Is it because of the nature of the work? Yeah, as you pointed out. But I don't have to jump into explaining the nature of the work and talk about Kanban and talk about Scrum. That was not the intent there. So I can say, okay, we have a situation at hand. We need to understand the pattern of this situation and the underlying reason of these situations. The possible reasons could be that product owner is not understanding the idea of backlog refinement and he is doing ad hoc work. Probably I need to talk and explain, coach the product owner to explain him how the backlog refinement can help him and create as better productivity for the team. It is for his and our benefit. There is no your benefit, my benefit, it's a team benefit. If team is suffering, product owner is also suffering. So I go with that mindset. There are no two party, we are common party. Probably we think we are two party, but we are not. Yeah. So I start with that approach. We can say we go with the foundational understanding. We work together rather than focusing against each other. And then we focus on, I help him to see the cost of rework, which is coming because of changing priority. And maybe we also understand the reasons which is triggering him to change priority. So we develop empathetic way. So coaching is all about listening and empathizing. So I empathize with the product owner and I make sure product owner empathize with me. Then I educate the product owner about the consequences of the actions and reactions. And then based on that, we figure it out. How do we move forward? In an initial stage, in order to move forward, we can set up a working agreement. Maybe with the help of definition of ready or something, we can have a working agreement. And then we reflect on it on a periodic basis, how these working agreements are working. So that way we need to exhibit, you need to use the word coaching, mentoring, you need to use word empathetic, you need to use the word about really getting into that person's shoes so that the interviewer understand that you understand. Because see, when I look at a Scrum Master job description nowadays, meant coaching the product owner seems to be a very prominent task, which will be very visibly coming there. So you need to use that particular stance and focus on, I will coach the product owner and I may elaborate these kind of things. So use coaching terminology in such kind of situations.
Yes, I do agree. Oh, I will tell you one thing because it's already more than 1 hour, so I'm in a hurry to wrap up everything. So most of the answers I'm just gulping. As you mentioned, the working agreement part, the DoD, everything I mentioned. Like during the initial phase, we have everything. But the question was, you have everything ready, but consider that the person is not cooperating. He is intentionally creating the trouble. How we are going to do? So I mentioned that first thing is to have a discussion to tackle any issue. We have to we have to have a discussion to understand why is he doing that. Then I can just reinitiate the points whatever we have already done. So, but this is something, Saket, I can say it may buy out. One person may going to buy out, the other person is may not going to buy out. So this is all about based on the person's mindset.
Perfect.
So
Yeah, that's
it's
there.
like as you said, nothing is wrong and right because somebody is going to once such a situation or solution is going to fit in for him. So for someone else, it may not. So it again based on that person's mindset. So I would like to thank you for this
Great.
overall
Thank you.
discussion.
Yeah.
And whatever you mentioned, suggested, I'll definitely go for that.
Sure. And
We'll
use
work.
the YouTube channel in case you have a frequent thing. You can just put a comment there and we'll see where we can point it out to you. Yeah.
Sure,
Great.
sure,
Nice
sir.
talking.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Same here. Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.